Several members I know criticized MOF's fiscal marksmanship. Look, when I started work in MOF decades ago, one of my main tasks was to provide fiscal projections. As an economist, that was what I did. I was one of those who would run the models and churn out the figures. So I know exactly what this work entails and how difficult it is. I will not defend the figures if they are off the mark, but I will speak up for our MOF officers who do this work with dedication and professionalism against any unfair criticisms. Ultimately, a budget is a projection. It is based on the best available information at that point in time. We have to plan ahead. We have to make assumptions, and we have to decide how we deal with uncertainties. In a crisis, when there's greater volatility in the economy, it is inherently more difficult to predict the turning points. But if you set aside unexpected crises like COVID, our operating revenue projections have generally not been far off the mark. So when you have higher growth, it means higher incomes, which drives consumption, and that shows up in higher collections for GST, for example, and COE. Now, Ms. Sylvia Lim suggested that the COE collections were driven by government policy, which kept prices high, but in fact, it was the opposite effect. The higher collections were a result of government action by injecting additional COE quota. This helped to bring prices down by 10 to 30% from the peaks in October 2023. But it also meant more motor vehicle sales. And then with more sales, more quantity purchased, that's why you have more revenues. So it's not a price effect, it's a quantity effect. In most other countries, poor budget marksmanship is when a government severely overestimates the revenue it will collect and underestimates its expenditure. That's what poor marksmanship is about. Then the government makes unfunded promises that it cannot see through because there's no money, or it borrows funds from somewhere else and kicks the can down the road, leaves behind a growing burden for the next generation. But this is not the case in Singapore, where we practice responsible and prudent budgeting. Ultimately, it's not just a matter of good marksmanship or poor marksmanship. It's a question of the right values and the wrong values, the correct fiscal principles and the wrong fiscal principles. And the WP and the PSP may think that we are being overly cautious in our projections, but this government will never take risk with Singaporeans' lives and future.